How's it going, YouTube? It's Pilot Flame, and we are back today with another video, and we'll be looking at Summoner and what we can see coming from it in Final Fantasy XIV's next expansion, Shadowbringers. Please note that anything that you see in this video or in any other videos are subject to change as they are a result of the media tours in North America and Europe, so everything is subject to change. So without further ado, let's get started. So what can we see from Summoner? Well, Summoner, in my opinion, is probably the job that changed the most. They feel more like a Summoner now, however, they still have some useful things in their kit that make them worth bringing to a party, such as Raise and Devotion, but they also still stick to the Summoner, or the what we can deem as the iconic Summoner way of playing, or way of basically acting as a Summoner, with just kind of spitting out, you know, your various different summons, one after another, and then just being overall really cool to aesthetically as well as gameplay wise. So what new things did they get? Well, at level 72 you get a trait that enhances your Dreadworm Trance, which basically gives you 2 units of Dreadworm Aether, which basically means that every time you use Dreadworm Trance you're going to be able to use Bahamut, basically. Which is quite nice at level 72. 74, every time you use Eggy Assault, which is a new ability you get 2 different types, which basically procs Further Ruin, which stacks up to 4 times, which Further Ruin basically allows you to use Ruin 4 instead of Ruin 3. At level 76, you receive a trait called Enhanced Tri-Disaster, which extends the duration of ruination to 30 seconds. Before it was 15 seconds, and basically this is the debuff on the target, which allows your runes to do more damage. At level 78, Bane will spread ruination to all of those targets that are affected by miasma or bio. And then at level 80, you receive Enhanced Firebird Trance, which basically allows you to bring out Phoenix instead of Bahamut. So you're going to be going through this rotation where you have Bahamut, then you have Phoenix, then you have Bahamut, then you have Phoenix, then you have Bahamut, and it's basically every 60 seconds you do the other one. So what's different about the two of them? Well, effectively they work the same, with some slight differences. So Worm Wave and the Phoenix's equivalent, they only work off of executed actions every time you use an action, and off GCD does not count anymore, whereas before you're using stuff like Addle and whatnot to get multiple Worm Waves out at any given time to maximize your damage. The only difference with Phoenix versus Bahamut is that Phoenix now has actual abilities which you use in place of your Eggy Assaults. So one of them is Fountain of Fire, which then changes into Brand of Purgatory. Fountain of Fire is a 250 potency fire damaging ability that costs 400 MP, which grants you Brand of Purgatory, which then does an AoE version of 300 to the first target and 50% to all remaining enemies, and you basically use these as a 1-2, 1-2, 1-2 type of combo. Scarlet Flame is the Worm Wave equivalent and can be basically executed every time you use a GCD. You also get a cool, neat little buff that's different for Phoenix over Bahamut, which is Everlasting Flight. So you get a very tiny regen to you and all nearby party members within a 15 yalm radius. I'm not sure if that's 15 yalms of the Summoner or if it's 15 yalms of Phoenix themselves. And then lastly, you get Revelation, which is basically your equivalent of Bahamut's Akmorn. And what it is just basically a stronger Akmorn. So they basically reconfigured the damage calculation that Akmorn does. So it's 680 for the first enemy and 50% less for all remaining enemies. Whereas Revelation has a less significant fall off. It's 680 for the first enemy, and then it scales 10% at a time until after the 5th enemy. In terms of their other main portions of their kit, They still have both dots of Miasma and Bio 3. They still have Tri-Disaster, which now, obviously, like we said, gets the trait, which increases Ruination to 30 seconds, which leads perfectly into the AoE section of things and the Aether Flow section of things. So Outburst also gets the increased potency from Ruination, so this is super useful now that Bane spreads Ruination at 78. Outburst is basically your Tri-Disaster. It deals 70 damage to all targets within a nearby radius, costing 400 MP. So that's quite nice. It makes your AoE a little bit more impactful. And in terms of Aether Flow now, Bane no longer costs Aether Flow, so you can still spread the Ruination, Bio, and Miasma like before, but it's just on a 10-second recast timer that does not require Aether Flow. What does require Aether Flow is Fester, which still functions pretty much the same way, and Pain Flare, which receives some potency tuning in regards to that. And they both cost 1 Aether Flow gauge. However, your Aether Flow is not tied at all to your Dreadworm Trance or Firebird Trance or your Summon Bahamut or Summon Phoenix. It is just literally a part of your kit where you have 2 cooldowns available, Fester with a 5-second recast time as well as Pain Flare, and you use or gain these Aether Flow abilities by using Energy Drain, which is just 100 damage potency ability, which has been reworked to just grant you Aether Flow 2, as well as Energy Siphon, which is the same thing, which shares a recast time with Energy Drain. That's just an AoE version of it. So now you only have 2 Aether Flow stacks. So what you're going to be trying to do is just organizing your Aether Flow to whereas you can put 2 Festers inside of a trick window, 2 side out, because Energy Drain and Siphon or Energy Siphon now have a 30-second recast timer, so you get to use it twice every minute. In terms of their other spells, ones that pretty much stayed the same, so pretty much all the rune spells are the same apart from the slight ruination changes. Summoner still has Resurrection, which costs 2400 MP as before. And all of the same functions in the Dreadworm Trance where Tri-Disaster resets and all that stuff. That is all the same. Now let's get on to the meat of it, which is the pet and how it interacts. So one of the major changes was that pets now don't die in battle. They stay alive forever until you obviously order them to be dismissed or you order out another pet. Summoning a pet is also an instant cast. It happens instantly, which is quite nice, and I believe the pet will try to auto attack or do an ability basically the second it comes out as well. That's what it looked like, at least in the job action trailer. And then you have 2 new abilities which are on a 2 charge system for each, as well as these charges are separate based on which summon you have. So if I use Eggy Assault 1, both of its charges, and Eggy Assault 2, both of its charges for Titan, and then I bring out Garuda, I will still have those 4 charges, assuming they were charged up over the required time for Garuda. And the charge time is 30 seconds per charge, meaning that you will need a full minute in order to get both charges back if you sit on them. In terms of what the pets actually do, they all have their 3 basic abilities. Ifrit is going to be mainly used for single target damage with his Burning Strike and his Flaming Crush and Crimson Cyclone. Those just deal fire damage, a single target, with the exception of Flaming Crush, which is an AoE. In terms of AoE, Garuda is the most likely candidate, with Windblade doing AoE damage, as well as Aerial Slash and Slipstream. Titan has a very useful ability in Earthen Armor, which will be used in Eggy Assault 2. And it basically gives you a 20% damage max HP shield for 30 seconds. So in a pinch, if you need to be able to survive a mechanic, you can do so with this Earthen Armor. But for the most part, you're going to be using Ifrit for single target and Garuda for anything of 2 targets or higher. And then you still have Enkindle, which is a 2-minute cooldown, which basically commands the pet to use Inferno, Earthen Fury, or Aerial Blast, depending on what pet you have out. In terms of any of the other abilities, you have Aether Pact, which is a ability that is used by the summoner now. It's on a 3-minute cooldown, and it basically grants Devotion, which is just AoE balance. It's 5% for 15 seconds, so not the same duration, but it's a 5% within a 15 yalm radius of the summoner. So it's quite nice. It is on a fairly long cooldown though of 180 seconds, so it's kind of, you know, not as good as AoE balance, but it is still something there. They seem to be moving away or nerfing that type of utility in terms of just giving everyone free damage. But nonetheless, summoner is going to be super strong and super cool to play. In terms of all of the other traits that we see here, not really much is going on there. Basically, they get traits as they level from 70 to 74, 76, 78, and 80 respectively. I believe you also have access to your Firebird trance, something I forgot to mention, at level 72 when you receive the trait which allows you to get 2 units of your Dreadworm Aether upon the end of Dreadworm Trance. So you'll still be able to have access to that, but you won't be able to do Summon Phoenix and do the Revelation like the Akmorn. So basically, imagine it being the same thing as what you were able to do before in Dreadworm Trance, just not being able to summon Bahamut. So it's kind of a similar thing there. But what can we see from Summoner? Overall, I like the design. I think it's really great. It's a lot of flexibility. It can do most of its damage instantly and on the move. It has various cool different aesthetics in terms of like this, the kind of like pet slinging type of job. Its raid utility obviously is minor, but it has the damage aspect as well as the defensive side with the resurrection. So if you're looking for something with a little bit more damage over a red mage, or something with a little more complexity, I think Summoner is going to be your go-to here. But overall, you're still going to be working in these like 1 minute to 2 minute window chunks. And basically it's just going to be dealing, from what I can tell, a lot of damage, and it's going to be doing various different things to make that happen, which is quite cool to see. So that's it for this video. We're on to the range next, and I believe Dancer's the first on the list. I'll have to double check that. But until then, take care, have a good night, and I'll see you in the next one.